Imagine being paralyzed for, 38 years. You've spent decades lying on the ground, just completely unable to move.
Right. It's an unimaginably long time.
Yeah, and then one day, this man walks up, tells you to stand up, and miraculously your body heals.
Hmm.
So you grab your sleeping mat, you stand on your own 2 feet for the first time in nearly 4 decades, and you start walking.
Which is, it's just this incredible life-altering moment.
Exactly. But the very first thing the local authorities say to you isn't, my goodness, it's a miracle. Instead, they look at you and say, drop that mattress, you're breaking the law.
It's an unbelievably jarring reaction when you actually stop and think about it. I mean, it completely defies human empathy.
It really does. Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are looking at a story you, the listener, might think you already know, which is the biblical narrative of the healing at the Bethesda pool in John chapter 5.
Right. Verses 1 through 15.
Exactly. But our mission today is entirely different from a typical Sunday school summary. We are looking at a 24-module exegetical workflow and asking one specific question.
And it's a great question.
Thanks. We want to know, how does verbal aspect and discourse analysis deepen our understanding of this passage?
Yeah, we are going to look right past the basic plot and examine the structural engineering of the narrative. Because the author isn't just telling a story. They are using the grammar to manipulate the reader's psychology, hide clues, and build a highly sophisticated argument about authority.
I love that. And I have to say, I see you've changed your video backdrop to this ancient, dusty library with glowing Greek grammatical charts and manuscripts everywhere.
I thought it fit the textual analysis theme for today.
It's perfect. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how the author is manipulating us, we have to start with how they use verbs.
Right, the verbs are everything here.
There is this concept in linguistics called verbal aspect. And following Constantine Campbell's framework, we need to understand how the author uses aspect to build the physical world of the story.
Well, in English, when we think about verbs, we are almost entirely obsessed with the timeline.
Yeah.
Past, present, or future. We want to know exactly when an action happened.
We just want the literal timeline of events.
Exactly. But in the ancient Greek, this text was written in, while time matters, the author is far more focused on aspect. Aspect is really about the viewpoint of the action. It's how the author wants you, the reader, to experience the event.
So it's more about the texture of the action.
Yeah, exactly. And there are two main types of aspect we need to look at here: imperfective and perfective.
Okay, let's start with the imperfective aspect. Linguists describe this as background grounding, right? It's used to describe an action from the inside, like an ongoing, continuous state.
Right. It doesn't focus on the beginning or the end of an action. It just forces you to sit inside the ongoing reality of it.
So the text uses these imperfective verbs to build the opening scene at the pool. It uses verbs like on for was and katakito for was lying.
Yeah, painting this really stagnant, dreary picture.
Exactly. We're forced into this waiting room of despair where a massive crowd of suffering people they're just continuously existing.
It creates this profound sense of duration. You can almost feel the heat and the hopelessness. Nothing is changing. It's just a static, uninterrupted state of affliction.
And the grammar itself is stagnant.
Yes, the grammar traps you there.
Yeah.
But then the author introduces a sharp contrast by shifting to the perfective aspect. Things like aorist tenses.
Which is kind of the exact opposite, right?
Right. The perfective aspect, using words like ane for went up or egeno for became, looks at an action from the outside as a complete, definitive whole.
So it doesn't drag on, it just happens.
Exactly. This is the mainline narrative. These are the definitive action beats that actually break the status quo and move the plot forward.
So think of imperfective aspect, like a movie director panning the camera across a static, dreary set to establish the mood.
That's a great way to picture it.
Yeah, sweeping over this crowd of paralyzed people. But the perfective aorist is when the director suddenly yells, "Action!" and the protagonist kicks down the door.
That is a brilliant analogy, and what's fascinating here is how the grammatical analysis reveals something heartbreaking about the man at the center of the story.
Because of how long he's been there.
Right. The text tells us he has been lying there in his illness for 38 years. And the author deliberately traps this man in that background continuous grammar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he is entirely defined by verbs of ongoing duration. Linguistically speaking, he is stuck. He has absolutely no ability to advance his own story or generate a perfective, definitive action.
So the grammar is literally mirroring his physical paralysis. He's paralyzed in the verbs.
Precisely. The narrative only moves forward. The grammar only breaks out of that stagnant loop when Jesus enters the scene.
Jesus brings the action.
Yes, Jesus is the one associated with the mainline narrative actions. He is the catalyst who brings movement into a linguistically dead space.
So the physical healing is almost secondary. The sentence structure itself is telling you that Jesus is the only one capable of altering reality here.
Exactly.
But if Jesus' entry breaks the static grammar, what exactly is he doing that's so disruptive? Because the author doesn't just switch verb types, they actually start breaking the rules of tense entirely, right?
Yes, they
There's
can.
this sudden shift to something called the historical present.
Right, and this is where the text really starts demanding your attention. This entire story is written as a past tense historical account. But suddenly, right in the middle of the action, the author drops a present tense verb into the narrative.
Like when they use the word lege.
Yes, instead of saying Jesus said to him, the text literally says Jesus says to him. Later, when Jesus locates the man in the temple, instead of he found him, it uses heuriskai. He finds him.
Wait, I have to stop and ask a skeptical question here. Are we overthinking this?
How do you mean?
Because if I'm at a coffee shop telling a friend a story, I mix my tenses all the time. I'll say, so I was walking down the street, and this guy comes up and he says, I'm not employing advanced linguistics. I'm just getting sloppy with my grammar. Is it possible the author just had a messy writing style?
That is a very fair question to ask, and linguists have to account for it. But the consensus in discourse analysis is that this is deeply intentional.
Really? Not just a quirk?
Not at all. In ancient texts, when an author breaks an established grammatical pattern, like shifting to the present tense, they are doing it to create prominence or foregrounding.
By putting a spotlight on it.
Exactly. It acts like a bright yellow highlighter on the page. They are signaling to you that this specific moment is the peak.
So it's a deliberate trick to pull the reader closer. And look at when the author uses it. They use the historical present specifically to introduce the speech of Jesus.
Yes. By highlighting the dialogue this way, the author is quietly telling the reader that the words of Jesus, his question, do you want to get well? And his commands are actually the theological climax of the whole event.
Even more than the physical miracle itself, the real focal point the author wants us staring at is what Jesus is saying.
Precisely. And the text also uses the perfect tense, like the word gigonas, meaning you have become well, to create heightened proximity.
Heightened proximity.
Yeah, it emphasizes a past action that has a permanent, ongoing result. Jesus is highlighting the permanent, unalterable, transformed state of the man's body, which is the direct result of his spoken word.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the author put a massive spotlight on the conversations, we have to use discourse analysis to look at the power dynamics inside those conversations.
Right, using systemic functional linguistics, or SFL.
Yes, SFL. We basically break down who is doing what to whom. And the ideational analysis of this passage is stark. Jesus is portrayed almost exclusively as the primary actor.
He initiates all the material processes, he approaches, he asks, he heals.
And crucially, he is the authoritative sayer. He drives the verbal action. Then there's the interpersonal analysis. Jesus occupies the dominant speaker role the entire time through second-person imperative commands.
Right. Stand up, take up your mat, walk.
Meanwhile, the sick man and the local authorities are grammatically subordinate. They speak with what linguists call negative polarity.
Yeah, their dialogue is entirely defined by restrictions and complaints.
Exactly. The sick man complains, I have no one. The authorities issue a prohibition. It is not lawful. It reminds me of reading a courtroom transcript.
That's a really good way to think about it.
Even if you didn't know who the judge was, you could figure it out just by analyzing who is issuing commands and who is issuing complaints or restrictions.
That is a highly accurate analogy, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, this grammar perfectly captures the social scientific models of the first-century Mediterranean world.
Which was huge on honor and shame.
Absolutely. The sick man starts in a low-status, powerless position, but Jesus acts as a unilateral benefactor.
He just walks in and takes over.
He does. He gives an unrequested healing that completely disrupts the expected social boundaries and the ritual purity laws of the Sabbath.
But those words don't just stay at the pool. The commands Jesus gives actually ripple out and cause absolute chaos for the rest of the story.
They really do.
And through textual and cohesion analysis, we can track that chaos. Let's look at the exact phrase Jesus uses. He gives a specific command, take up your mat and walk, or aron ton krabaton sukai peripatai.
right? And in linguistics, the repetition of a specific phrase like that is called a cohesion chain.
Yes, and tracing this chain is wild. It's first spoken by Jesus as a command in verse 8, then it's immediately repeated in the narrative action in verse 9 when the man obeys.
So it keeps going.
It does. In verse 11, the man quotes the command verbatim as his legal defense. He says the guy told him, "Take up your mat and walk." And then in verse 12, the Jewish authorities quote the exact same command back as the basis for their interrogation.
They become completely fixated on it.
So what does this all mean for the reader? Why repeat the mat thing 4 times instead of celebrating the healing? Why ignore the miracle?
It reveals how the author manages the flow of information. There's a concept called theme rime progression. It's how information flows from old to new in a sentence.
Okay, so how does that work here?
The theme is the established, known information. The rime is the new critical information, the punchline. By continually pushing this specific command into the punchline, the author deliberately shifts the conflict away from the miracle itself.
Wow, so the miracle is just treated as old news.
Exactly. The new explosive information driving the hostility is the absolute authority of Jesus' word. The repetition of the command proves that Jesus' verbal authority has completely overridden the traditional structures of the Sabbath law.
Which is why the authorities are so furious. They don't care about the healing, they care about the disruption of their rules.
Their tunnel vision is incredible. They completely miss the divine transformation standing right in front of them because they are so focused on the legal infraction.
Okay, let's synthesize this for you, the listener. We've seen how diving into the grammatical weeds aspect, tenses and discourse roles, doesn't make the text boring.
Not at all. It reveals a masterpiece of literary architecture.
Exactly. The grammar itself forces the reader to see Jesus' absolute sovereign authority over illness, time, and religious tradition.
It's all built into the verbs.
It really is a reminder that reading a text closely pays massive dividends in understanding its true message.
It absolutely does. And actually, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Ooh, I love a good final thought. Let's hear it.
There is a haunting detail hidden in the intertextuality of this passage. The specific phrasing of the man's duration of illness, 30 and 8 years, or tria conta kai octo eto, is a direct lexical echo of Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 14.
Wait, really? What's in Deuteronomy 2:14?
That is the exact duration of ancient Israel's wandering in the wilderness under divine judgment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder, was this paralyzed man at the pool serving as a typological symbol for an entire generation? A people trapped by old, stagnant structures, just waiting for the ultimate authoritative word to finally lead them out.
That is incredible. It completely reframes the whole story. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this encourages you to keep exploring and looking closely at the texts around you. See you next time.